All right, a very good afternoon to everyone. Okay, thank you for sharing your afternoon with us. It's a very sleepy time. I know it's tea time. Okay, grab a drink and sit back and have a listen to what we have to share with you with regards to, helping your child ease into primary one. It could be just primary one. If you have older children as well, this will also be very useful because the tips that we're going to be sharing with you today do not just hold for primary the students of the ages of primary one, but rather it carries you through out all their academic years, actually from primary one all the way to secondary school or even to JC. Okay, now couple of things for us to discuss today, right? We'll be talking about learning motivators. Now, what actually motivates a child to learn? Okay, how do we encourage students to have the interest to learn, especially if, as we all know, studying maybe the least of their priorities right now, right? Because simply, it's boring, they don't see the immediate effect of it. They don't see how it's going to benefit them, right? But we've all been through this phase of life. We all know that, especially when we live in Singapore, it's very important, right? Paper certificate, as much as we may think, that eventually it doesn't apply in our working world, right? But it's actually very important to get us to that step forward into the working world, into having a good job, right? And of course, we are here to also discuss how to learn language more effectively, right? Many students, especially in Singapore, struggle with having a good grasp of the English language simply because, it's mandatory for us to actually do a mother tongue, right? So in this case, many of us do Chinese, either Tamil or Malay, right? Okay. And there is the use of Singlish, which makes it very challenging for students to have a very pristine command of the language per se, right? And how do we encourage students to focus on having good spoken English, especially because it's very important nowadays in school? Okay, and of course, we as parents, how can we provide better parental support to our kids, especially during exam period, when they're going to start a new phase of their lives, especially when they're going to enter primary one. It's very daunting, very intimidating for a child of the ages of 7 years old as they enter primary one. New environment, new friends, new teachers, everything is completely new to them. So how can we as a parent help ease them into this new phase of their lives? Okay, now let me first start off with sharing with you about learning motivators. Okay, if all of you have attended talks before, or maybe, okay, what is a learning motivator? Okay, a learning motivator is actually an internal driving force that affects students' power to learn. Okay, so what do we actually mean by this? Okay, we are actually talking about something that makes them want to improve, want to learn about their own learning pace, their own information that they will take in, right? Okay, it's something that makes our kids want to learn. Now, how can we do this? Basically, we start off by following our child's lead, right? To elicit their curiosity, okay, and of course, making them lead you in terms of what they want to learn. All right. Now, how can we actually do this, right? Is by looking at what gains their interest. So, for example, if we are talking about maybe language per se, right? So you notice that sometimes when we turn on the news, or when we play in the radio and the kids are actually interested, right? What they do, they will just pick up on something, right? You can see they will just ask you questions like, hey mommy, what's that thing, right? So that is what is actually gaining their interest. So based on this, I would say pick up on this. Learning doesn't have to fall within the four walls of a classroom or even in at home, right? It can take place outdoors. So at any point of time, if your child, for example, as I've used the example of watching the news, reading any article, right, that gains their interest, sometimes it could even be a picture, right? When that happens, it's how you deal with their question that actually elicits their curiosity and helps them to gain interest in what they're going to learn. All right. So that being said, right, for example, if you listen to the news and they're asking you something, maybe they could be picking up on something about COVID. Maybe they could be picking up something about Trump, right? The whole election fever. So if they ask you, it's about how you direct their learning to actually help them be able to absorb information better, right? Then, of course, there is the element of play, right? Now, when I say that, yes, we can encourage play while learning, many people look at me and go, really? In fact, I would say that many students, it's proven, studies have proven that when you encourage play, when you inculcate play in a child's learning process, they retain information better, Okay, they are able to help the child understand things in their perspective, right? When it comes to understanding things, we need to remember that it is not how we transmit the information to our child that is going to affect how he receives it, right? The child must be able to understand what you're saying, process it in their little minds, right? And from then on, the moment they're able to process it and understand it, that is when they learn something. So really, it's no point. For example, okay, okay, we use grammar. For example, simple subject verb agreement, right? The boys are eating, right? If your child is only able to process the boy is eating, right? If they need to be able to understand that because it is plural, the boys, right? Therefore, we have to use a verb that is plural, in this case, are, right? Okay, eating. They need to be able to understand this and process this within their own minds. If they are unable to do so, no matter what you do, it's not going to help them be able to get the correct answer, right? So with that being said, right, let me show you later, okay, on our platform, how we actually teach grammar and vocab in every session of our primary 1 through 4, right? Okay, so if you've got children the ages above primary 1 as well, right, we have grammar and vocab in every single English lesson, because we believe that to have good language, the basics, the basis of that language is actually grammar and vocab. So we keep repeating, we keep reiterating that, so that the students are able to understand the importance and grasp the correct concepts. Okay, that being said, when we go into encouraging play, as I mentioned, right, have something a little bit more fun. Have games, have things that are involving outdoors. So for example, when I used to teach for example, writing, okay, and in secondary school level. So this applies not only for primary 1, but also for older kids. So you can imagine, if older kids would also enjoy going out there, having a bit of fun when they're learning, let alone the younger ones who are unable to keep still, right? I'm sure you know that the younger your child is, the ability to sit down and pay attention is very short. So to be able to grab their attention within that quick 30 minutes, maximum 45 minutes, right? It's very, very crucial, because this is when they're actually able to learn and absorb the most, right? So I would say that when you're encouraging language learning, put in the element of play, bring them outdoors. So what I used to do, right, especially when it comes to writing. So for example, when we do writing, a lot of parents struggle with this, right? Which is why many children go for enrichment classes, tuition classes when it comes to writing. Why is this so? Because words are not something that come naturally to all of us, right? Words, it comes from reading, comes from listening, right? The ability to apply good language comes from a whole spectrum of different exposure to different elements, of which, when I say bring them out to play, I mean literally go out there, right? You want to describe beautiful weather. Today is a good day, for example, right? You can bring them out, just go to the park, ask them to close their eyes, feel the sunshine, right? Feel the sun rays. That is describing how the sun is. You want to describe what they're hearing, what they're listening to. Close their eyes and listen to what is around you. You may hear birds chirping, you may hear children laughing, because now we are all able to go outdoors, right? Okay, in their mask, of course, yes, but okay, you'll be able to hear children laughing, you'll be able to hear dogs barking. Let them experience it. Play is not necessarily fun all the time. It's about experiential learning as well, as I'll touch on later, right? We learn through different methods, right? So I'm a very, not so much of a visual, but a more audio learner. So when people say something, I absorb things better, right? But there are people, in fact, I think 80%, it's been proven, right, that students in Singapore, 80% are actually visual learners, right? So this is very good, because as long as you write something, or you present something in a very graphical format for the students, they are able to understand, or rather receive the information and absorb the information much better. Right, so this is something that we actually use on our 88 tuition platform, because we write on the whiteboard facing front towards the students, which is very important. So we maintain the eye contact, right? As long as we lose eye contact, we realize that students tend to have their minds wander off, right? So we face front and we write on the whiteboard, because we believe that retention of information is best done when students are able to see the information presented to them. Okay, so back to my example of, going out there, experiencing how to write, the atmosphere, the environment. This is very important when it comes to writing. So I remember when I was teaching back in secondary school, I wanted the kids to learn how to write about speech, right? When you deliver a speech, what kind of ambience, what kind of atmosphere. And so I brought them to the school hall, get them to stand at the podium, pretend to be the one standing up there, and you'll be surprised. The whole mentality shift, right, in their little minds, right? In this case, secondary school, but it's the same for primary school actually, right? It shifts, and they're able to understand things better simply because they are put in that position. When students are being put in that position, they'll be able to something will be able to click, and it will be able to benefit them in their learning. Okay, and something parents, I would just like to appeal to you is to praise the process rather than outcome. So in all my years of teaching, right, so I've been teaching for the past, oh, too long. Okay, I've been teaching for the past, I think, 11 years, right? Okay, one pattern that I've realized that parents, because I mean, I speak to parents during meet the parent session, right? They always come and tell me, hey, Miss Indra, my kid only gets like, 70%, right? So how can I move my kid forward? How can I help my kid improve? And something along those lines, because at the end of the day, we're looking for, of course, the grades that matter, right? But parents, let me appeal to you that maybe from today onwards, we can try a different approach, right? We praise the process, because at the end of the day, let's put it that way, no child will intentionally want to do badly for an exam, for in their learning process. No one wants to do badly, no one wants to get scolded, because that's the outcome if we were to do badly, right? As students, right? If we are going to do badly, our parents will scold us, they'll take away certain privileges that we have, etc., right? So every child, right, to our belief, to my belief especially, is to always doing their best. So we should always praise the process that they're going through, right? So when I say praise the process, what does this mean? So for example, your child is not doing well in English, for example, right? But we recognize that there's the effort, to read a little bit more. A child hates reading, but there's the effort, picks up a book, at least try to go through 2-3 pages a day, right? We praise that. We tell the child, hey, I noticed you've been putting an effort, to read. Maybe I could read with you. I think you're going to be improving a lot more because you're putting in the effort. Encourage them. Praise the action. Praise the process of which they're trying to get there. Like I mentioned, nobody's intention is to do badly. Nobody wants to do that. In fact, I think it's a lot easier to get a good score than a bad score, because no, it's very hard. It's our natural instinct to write the correct answer most of the time, right? So nobody wants to do badly, simply put, right? So we always should praise the process, the effort, rather than the outcome. Of course, if they get an A star, if they get an A, awesome, right? That's a whole different level altogether. But what we're encouraging over here is the love for learning, right? It's not the love for A's. I mean, that's a, by the way, an awesome kind of result, but we are trying to inculcate the love for learning. Okay, now, how I know this is a big question many of you will have, right? How you encourage your child to actually read more effectively. Okay, so I'm given a passage, right? How can I encourage my child to absorb the information to the best of his ability? It can be a passage, a paragraph, or maybe 50 words. Because mind you, for us, 50 words is like easy peasy, right? It's like maybe maximum 2 paragraphs, 2 short paragraphs. But for a child of 7 years old, it's a huge chunk to take in, right? So how can we make it a little bit more bearable for them? Right? What we're looking at is to take small pauses when we are reading through the passage, right? Okay. Read through the passage with them. For the first few times, parents, I strongly encourage you, have yourself, or an older sibling, maybe a mentor, to actually read through it with them, go through it slowly, right? Pause and ask certain questions. I'll give you an example later so you know probably how to go about doing it. Of course, you can adjust it as per how your child is, right? If your child is quicker, you can go a bit quicker. If a child needs a little bit more time, we just slow down and help them absorb a little bit more. Okay, but let me just briefly go through the method before I actually show you how to do it. Okay, break the text into smaller chunks, right? That being said, what we actually mean is, when we have a long piece of information, we try to break up the information such that it's more digestible for the child. Okay, and of course, right, language being language, okay, whether it's English, Chinese, Mandarin, Tamil, Malay, etc., right? We always have to look up the dictionary for words that we do not know. And parents, I strongly encourage you to set that example for your child, right? I remember when I was young, I mean, we don't have the electronic dictionary or any app that we can use, but now it's really simple, right? Just download the app onto your iPad, phone, or you even use the internet browser, right? Just key in dictionary.com, or I use Merriam-Webster, right? You just go up there, check through the British dictionary, okay, and then you'll be able to find out meanings and synonyms, definitions, etc., right? Okay, make sure that you lead by example and you're the one who's actually helping your child do it first, because it's a habit, right? The moment we do it, our child will follow. Hey, I don't know that word. Mom did this. Let me try it. So the moment they get in the hook of things, in the whole practice, it's easier for you to actually encourage this sort of behavior, right? So when I teach my students, I make sure my dictionary app is always on, because there is no way I'm going to give them the meaning. I don't believe in spoon feeding, right? We should show them the ropes. We should never give it to them, right? Okay, so it's always on. They want to check the meaning, they go ahead and do it. They don't, I never ever tell them the meaning, unless maybe they've checked like 10 words and they're really at their wits end, they really cannot, then okay, fine, I'll give it to them, right? But the effort must be put in first. I'm not just going to give it to them free of charge, so to speak, right? Okay, now also, one important thing for students to be able to register the information is to actually visualize the content. Now, what do I mean, right? Sometimes you can be reading a passage, maybe about food, maybe about sports, right? We help them visualize what it is that they're reading. Either go and look for a picture. Sometimes, maybe you were talking about soccer. They don't exactly know what soccer is. So go and find a soccer ball, go and find a YouTube video, or maybe how some students play soccer, right? I would say students, because younger children are able to identify with people their own age. It's no point finding like, those adult star players. Yes, it may be, but they wouldn't be wowed at their age of 7. They'll be like, oh, okay. But if they see children of their own age playing, they'll be more interested, because, well, like minds, right? Like behavior. So that will encourage interest. The moment they're able to be interested, they're able to visualize content, it registers with them. That's the absorption part. Okay, now let me give you an example of how to actually go through the passage. Okay, so this is the passage. Okay, let me just read through it with you. Yeah. Okay, oopsie. John felt very hungry. He had skipped his break time snack because he had forgotten to do his homework. His teacher was furious with him and did not allow him to go out of class as a result. Having no choice but to finish up his homework, John felt regretful about his actions and wished that he could have that delicious looking sandwich and Milo drink that his mother had packed for him. Okay, now parents, you realize that I went very, very slowly. Okay, not absolutely slowly, but I went at a very comfortable pace for a child. Why so? Number one, okay, when you're reading, as a parent yourself, right, when you read slowly, you're able to observe a couple of things. Firstly, you're able to manage your own pace, right, and avoid making any mistakes, just in case, sometimes we read very quickly, we tend to skip over words, etc., because we are also modeling good reading behavior, right? Okay. Secondly, what we are also helping the child to do is break up chunks of information. You notice that whenever I have a punctuation, I pause for a while, right? I'm helping the child register whatever I'm saying. And the things that I'm trying to emphasize, I sort of go a little bit louder, right? So that the child is able to, hey, my mom's talking about delicious looking sandwich. So they're able to sort of put a picture there. Right. So after I'm done reading through with the child, okay, I will go into the passage per se, right? So the different sentences, what they actually mean. Right. So, for example, when I'm dealing here, so John felt very hungry. I can ask my child, so what does it mean by being hungry? If they don't know, right, you can go on further in the passage. You realize that they said he had skipped his break time snack. So he was hungry because he did not eat. Right. He had skipped his break time snack, which is in our Singapore terms, right, recess time. Right. Okay. So because he skipped that, that's why he's hungry. So the student is able to understand, hey, I didn't eat, or rather John didn't eat. That's why he's feeling hungry. So this is how they learn the skill of inference, right? Because this is an extremely important skill as you go up the levels, right? You come up to primary 3, primary 5, that's the huge jump between 4 and 5, right? Primary 5, primary 6 for the comprehension, even in their secondary school years. So this this skill of inferential, right? Inferential skills, right, are very important so they can actually understand what's written in between the lines. Okay, then we go on with the paragraph, right? Because he had forgotten to do his homework. Now we know why he couldn't have his recess, right? Forgot to do homework, right? Stuck in class, probably. Now we read on to find out more. His teacher was furious with him, right? Furious means very, very angry. Then we go in. Okay, so what is the meaning of furious? Then we can ask the child, okay, so if I'm angry, where is furious? Is furious more angry or less angry? Right? So we do it on a spectrum. Emotions, right, parents, it is best to teach children on based on a spectrum so they are able to identify, right, what is actually which emotion and where is it on that spectrum of, for example, in this case, anger. So anger is maybe somewhere around here. Furious is very angry. Livid is absolutely angry, right? Like can throw or punch someone, that kind of feeling, right? So when we create this spectrum, the child is better able to understand where the emotions lie. Right? Okay. So his teacher was furious with him and did not allow him to go out of class as a result. So very angry, cannot go out of class. Immediately your child is able to register that. So next time if your child is stuck in class for recess, right, he'll tell you, Mommy, Mrs. Tan was furious with me because she didn't let me go out for recess. Okay, so the application will be there as soon as they realize and they're able to absorb this sort of emotion on a spectrum basis. Okay, now having no choice but to finish up his homework, so he had no choice, right? He finished up his homework, he felt regretful. Now, this may be a big word for a child, but parents, actually, to be honest, I feel that there is no stopping a child at learning vocabulary, right? The more you read, the more you expose them, and of course, with proper guidance, the child will be able to absorb new words, right? Of course, that being said, the different ability, as in the speed at which they absorb, may vary, right? Of course, quicker kids may be able to pick up words a little bit more quickly, right? They may be able to remember words better, right? Okay, but they will still be able to learn regardless of how fast they are in their learning capability, right? So I would strongly encourage you, just throw in a couple of words, maybe 2-3 vocab words in each passage. Speak it out with them, have a conversation. Why? Because when you come to PSLE, your oral actually looks at how vast and how wide your spectrum of vocabulary that you use when you converse is. If you speak in basic language, not that it's wrong, of course that's better than Singlish, right? But not you will be given a certain score. Whereas if you were to be able to give more vocabulary and use more vocabulary words, you will definitely be able to score better, simply because the spoken, you're able to express yourself more widely, right? When you have a larger vocabulary, it's a lot easier for you to actually express yourself better. Right. So actually for this week, we have a blog, right? 88 Tuition has a blog, right? We actually speak about how to improve our vocab. Okay, so if you're interested, you can go to our website, right? Or I can even show it to you later, right? When I'm doing my demo about how you can use our blog to actually gain some tips, parenting tips, studying tips, right? When it comes to various learning aspects that you want to help your child improve in. Okay, now John felt regretful. Then you can ask your child about, what does regretful mean? Have you ever regretted anything? So digress a little bit to make it more applicable for the child, right? As long as they are able to identify the passage, 100% they'll be engaged with the text for sure, right? But you must make sure that they are engaged in it. They must be able to relate to it, because even as adults, if we don't feel a connection to whatever is being said, right? Like now, if what I'm talking doesn't make sense to you, you will not be interested to listen, right? So you need to be able to be engaged. As adults, if we are not engaged, how can we expect a child of 7 years old to be engaged? Right? Okay. So John felt regretful about his actions and wished that he could have the delicious looking. Now, when we read delicious looking sandwich, so we stop and we think, okay, so we can think Subway, we can think it's not really a burger, but it can be considered a burger in some sort, right? Okay, it's a delicious looking sandwich. So we can ask the child, okay, so delicious looking sandwich, have you eaten before? Have I made for you before? Blah, blah, blah. And then that's how a conversation about that can go. So when they register it, they're able to visualize it. This is what I mean by the child is able to visualize the content. Okay, and Milo drink, come on. Which child doesn't like Milo? Okay, maybe about 90% love Milo, right? I love Milo still. So yeah. Okay, and Milo drink that his mother had packed for him. So basically, this is making the passage actually come alive to the child. Okay, engaging is key. Remember that if there's anything you're taking away from this slide, engagement with the child, asking questions, making the text relevant to the child is the most important thing. Okay, now we're going on. Okay, this is what I've actually said just now through my demo, right? Ask the child questions. What do you think he was feeling? How do we know this? Do you think he will forget his homework again? How do we know? And what would you do? Or would you forget your homework in future? For example, something along those lines. Okay, now how we can actually provide better parental support, right? Allowing your child to be in charge of his or her own learning. Many times we tell the child, okay, you know what? Today you're going to do comprehension for me. Today you're going to do your multiplication table. Today you're going to do addition, subtraction. Why don't we let our children decide what they want to learn? Of course, that being said, they have to pick something from a spectrum of books, right? They can't be like, okay, I don't want to learn. Many times they will probably say that, Mommy, I don't want to do anything today. I just want an iPad. Sorry, that's not going to happen. Okay, but if they do want the iPad, that's when 88 tuition comes in, because our portal has lessons, or in fact we run online, right? So that being said, you can be 100% assured that they are still learning, but they are watching our videos, they're doing our computer assignments, and they're learning along the way, right? So as long as they demonstrate an interest to want to do a certain subject, right, let's make sure we support that. Okay, and remember just now I said that I was an audio learner, right? Our children, all of them, you and I included, right? Okay, we all have different learning styles. As I mentioned, mine is more of audio, right? Visual is maybe about 50%, right? But many of us focus on visual, right? And a lot of children at a younger age are actually mobile learners, right? Basically, they're kinetic learners. What do we mean by that? They learn while they move. So I remember when I was younger, right, and I had to memorize text. Okay, I basically would grab my notes and walk around the room, right, and try to, like, okay, so I'm walking and thinking biology because I did trip science, right? So I would do, like, try to remember all the different terms. Biology is a lot of memory work, right? So all the different terms for that, right? And I found that it helped me. I couldn't sit still or write notes. That didn't work for me, right? So each of our children, especially you and I also as adults, right, we all have different learning styles. It is important to find out what your child's learning style is. There are some tests that you can actually do online to actually find out how your child actually retains information better. In fact, you can do some tests on your own. You can just bring your child out or make him sit down and see which one he responds to better. If your child is able to sit down, and just do homework quietly, many children at this age are not able to be honest, right? Because it develops later on, the other learning styles, right? But you are able to tell which of the learning styles is he tending towards. Okay, and of course, as I mentioned just now, you praise the process. You also focus more on the learning process, right? How the child learns, what the child learns. Okay, remember, I'm using two terms here: how and what. How is the method that he's actually learning, right? How is he doing it? What he's learning is the content, right? So the content, I'm not saying it's not important, right? But the content is secondary compared to the method of learning. So if the child wants to go out there and experience something, encourage that. Okay, don't stop it. Okay, of course, that being said, there must be work done. Okay, but there are other forms when work can actually take place, when actually studying or learning can take place, as I mentioned. Okay, now before I go on to the demo, right? Okay, I believe this, parents, and I hope that you adopt this as well. As best as we can, we should always make sure that our children are happy children, right? Because the moment a child is happy, and I don't mean bribing, okay, it's not going to help in the long run. It won't help your pocket. It's not going to help the child, right? I mean, make the child love learning simply by modeling it yourself, right? Make learning fun, because if you enjoy it as a parent, 101% your child will enjoy it as a child, right? So a happy child is a willing child with the heart to learn. Half the battle is actually won. And I strongly believe in this, because when I step out of my classes, I always make sure that my students are happy. They always have a smile. If they don't have a smile, I've not done my job, basically, right? So make sure that your child is happy, so that your life to educate, or rather to help, guide your child, right? And your child is actually happy, right? It's a lot easier that way. Okay, now that being said, I'm actually going to show you how to use our portal, but maybe I can give you a 30-second break. Just go grab a drink of water, go for a toilet break, 30 seconds, maybe 30 seconds, maybe 1 minute. Okay, come back in 1 minute, and then I will go through with you how to actually use our portal, how our portal can actually benefit your child. Okay, so I'll see you in about 1 minute. All right. Okay, hi parents, welcome back. For those of you who are not here. Okay, let me just begin slowly, right? So I can actually show you and demonstrate to you how to actually use our portal. Okay, now I will go to 88tuition.com, right? I will also go to the blog later, but this one will be later. Let me show you how to use our portal first, okay? So I will see this website, right? Okay, firstly, we go in and we set up a new account. So let me just go and put my account. Oopsie. Okay. So let me just, oops. Okay. And let me create an account. Okay. And let me just send, or rather, let me just type in my password. Okay. Okay, so this is the page I will get after my registration is successful. All right, now I want to register my son. Okay, my son is Harsh. He is in primary 1. Okay, Harshi, and let me set up a password for him. Please take note that you should take down your child's username and password to give them full authority of their learning platform. Remember, I mentioned just now, empower your child, let him take control of his learning, right? Do this. Okay, when your child is being entrusted with their own username and their own password, trust me, it makes a world of a difference. Rather than, okay, come, mommy sign in for you. No, let them do it. It makes them feel important. We need to remember, give your child responsibility so that he'll be able to be in charge of his own learning, in years to come. Right? Okay, now we proceed. Okay, so this is my primary 1 child. Let me show you. All right, I would like to show you as well. If I have a daughter, right, I'll add a new child over here. Can you see? I will click on Harsh Boy, add new child. Okay, I have a girl, so maybe she's upper primary 5. Okay, 1 2. Okay, so same thing here. Please take note of username, password, and we proceed. Okay, I'll be showing you 2 things. Let me show you what, or rather how our primary 1 lessons are structured. We'll go into English. Okay, so I teach the English lessons. All right, let me give you a sample of how the lessons are, but let me just show you something first, okay? Do you realize that, okay, for these 3 over here, lesson 1, lesson 2, lesson 3, right? There are no locks over here, right? So what do these locks actually mean, right? For your trial, we give you a free trial of 12 lessons, right? These lessons that do not have the locks are those that you can unlock for your viewing. Of course, if you want to view those that have the locks, then please register and sign up with us. Okay, so we'll go into lesson 1, right? I actually wanted to show you how the lessons are. Remember, I told you just now, right, that that my lessons from primary 1 through 4 all have grammar and vocab, right? Let me just go into showing you a grammar lesson. Ooh. Okay, let me zoom in on the time. I'll go into, okay. Okay, so over here, I will usually go through a passage with the child. In this case, because it's the first lesson, right? Building blocks, okay, as you saw just now, let me just show you, all right? Building blocks over here, right? It's the bridge between kindergarten, right? Sometimes, maybe our child needs a bit of adjustment period, right? Kindergarten to primary 1. So these are the 8 lessons sort of helping them to come in and adjust to primary 1 before we officially start with lesson 1. And because lesson 1 is our first lesson, right? I talk a little bit more about myself. My passage for their comprehension is actually about me. So I'm sort of introducing myself to them. Okay, so maybe we can have a short listen. Okay, remember just now I also said that we write a lot of things on the board, right? Or in this case, our screen, because we believe that visual is able to, anything written on the visual, right, is able to help the child understand things better. Okay?
I used to go to Rosyth Primary School. Do you know?
Sorry about that.
It's a wonderful place to work in, and I love my fun and friendly colleagues. Colleagues are people who work with me. So people who work with me. Okay? Now, I live in Singapore, and I used to go to Rosyth Primary School. Do you know where Rosyth is? Yes, it's somewhere in Serangoon. Okay, that was my primary school. Okay, I enjoyed my primary school very much because it was a very fun place to be in.
Okay, so that being said, this is usually how the lesson goes. There's going to be not just for my lessons, but also the other subjects and other levels as well, right? We always have a little bit of engagement to sort of get the child interested. Okay, and then we move on, right? We're going to be talking a little bit more about present and past tense. Let me just play it out, yeah?
So also kind and helpful. I loved my primary school days. Okay, now we're going to talk about present and past tense. Students, can you tell me what is present tense? Yes, it is talking about currently, now. If it's something that happened in the past, means maybe yesterday, maybe last week, right? So something that happened last time. Okay,
so we will go sort of in depth and try to explain the techniques and the concepts of the different grammar rules. Okay, so this is for the teaching video, right? Over here, you can see there's introduction to grammar. That's the first video. Okay, then we have the CAA. Let me show you the CAA. Okay, so CAA is what we know as the computer aided assessment, right? So this is for your child to actually do. So basically read through the instructions for each of the questions, fill in the blank with the present tense or the simple past tense. Right, so we continue. Let me just do a few questions. Okay, so we, in this case, let's say, okay, we need, okay, air to live. I always, for example, let me put takes, for example. Okay, and maybe for this one, I don't know how to do it. I'm gonna skip it. Okay, so daddy, maybe every morning, so he read it, for example. Okay, and dragons, maybe because this is plural, breathe out fire. I saw a tiger yesterday. Kind woman brings. Okay, we stood. Barked. Okay, and maybe sat. Okay, so now that we are at the end, right? Okay, what is happening here? You notice that there are different colors, right? So for the answers that are correct, we get them in green. For the answers that are wrong, right, we get them in red, but the correct answer is in blue. And of course, if those questions that are not tried out, right, okay, they are actually in blue also. Okay, so what is good about this, right? You can always choose to print out, okay, so that you are able to have a record of what your child has done, right? Okay, basically the option will be to come out and you'll be able to print. If you do not want to print, you can also just choose to print the questions, right, for your child to physically write it out, the answers, just in case you want the child to practice and time the child, etc. Right? Okay, now what happens is whenever your child has completed the assessment, the CAA, right? Okay, they'll be able to watch a review video where the teacher will actually go through the answers. Okay, so with that being said, let me just zoom in and show you just now the first question. We had something like that, right?
Present. Okay, now let's go through the answers. Let's take a look at an example. Mother often cooks the same dishes. This one we use present tense, right? Okay, so mother often cooks the same dishes. It's the same thing. Next, let's try out the questions. We, if this is plural, and if this whole practice on present tense, okay, so we need air to live. Not we need, because plural, you do not have the S. Okay.
Okay, so this is basically how our lessons run, right? Okay, we will have the review after each CAA so that the students will be able to understand where they go wrong if they need any explanation. All right, now let me go back to my dashboard, okay, and I show you, because just now remember I have an older child, right? Okay, so what is different about the upper primary if you happen to have older children, right? So let's go down to maybe a subject. For example, we go down to math. Okay, what is great, okay, is that you know how for math you go by topics, right? For English you go by, grammar, different components, right? You have your writing, you have your paper tool, your grammar, your vocab. But for subjects like math and science, right, you go by topics. So in this case, our program is very useful, right? Because you'll be able to see what the whole year syllabus is, and you can zoom in on what your child needs at that certain point of time, right? And as usual, I told you we open a certain number of lessons for the free trial, right? And of course, beyond that, please register and sign on with us. Okay, so this is very useful, especially when you need to zoom in on topics and you have topical tests, because you have CAs, even though we don't have CAs now, right? But we have WAs. I'm sure you're familiar with this if you've got older children, right? Your WAS, your weighted assessments, right? Okay, this will be very useful for your child then. Okay, now that being said, this is actually the demo of our portal, but let me just show you our blog, right? Okay, so just last week we had a blog entry. It's actually blog.88tuition.com, right? We have a blog entry on how to improve your vocabulary, right? So what happens here is we give you some tips, okay, on how you can actually improve your vocab, steps you can take, activities you can engage in, and of course the English is written in good English that you can share with your child. Okay, so that being said, this is what I have to show you for the 88 tuition demo, okay? And now what I would like to do is, hang on, there is a surprise element. Okay, I mentioned just now that we have a guest on the show, right? And he is actually none other than our Dr. Ali. Okay, so if you're familiar with Dr. Ali, right, he's actually teaching science for our primary 3 students all the way through secondary 4. Okay, wait, I need to find him. Give me a second. Okay. Hi.
Hi.
Okay, thank you for joining us today.
My
So
pleasure.
how did you escape your kids?
Ah, as usual, I'm very experienced in that. So just like all our parents here. Yeah.
Okay, so that being said, when you say you're very experienced, right, do you actually send them for enrichment classes, or how do you actually, you know, get them away from you basically, or have your alone time?
Oh, you definitely have to have your partner's, help in this, because it's either she has her me time or I have my me time. Otherwise, if both of us are going out, then we have to bring all of them out together. And I have to reveal that with these 3 kids, we don't have a helper at home. So that's a challenge. But we have managed to come through all these years, about 11 years now.
Okay, so that being said, do you actually send your kids for enrichment classes?
Yes, I do. But my philosophy has always been not to focus them too much on academic enrichment outside of school, because they already have a lot of emphasis on academic in school. So I don't send them for tuition per se. I send them for more of CCA kind of activities like swimming, martial arts, running, or something along those lines. Yeah. So none of them have tuition. Of course, I'm a teacher, but they depend on me at home for teaching. So they are quite confident that they can depend on me. So maybe that's the reason why they can go out there and just play and not worry about school. But having said
Okay.
that, yes, some parents may have a disadvantage in that their academic uh, ability to teach their kids what is taught in school is not there. So they may be considering tuition and all that, right? So
Mm.
um, many parents have asked if tuition at P1 is really necessary. Since all the parents here are of P1 nature, I will recommend not giving them tuition at this point. So that's where 88 tuition comes in, because it's more like a home platform where the parents can actually watch what they are learning in school. Everything is spelled out and they can sit at home, and they don't have to send such young kids out to a tuition center. So that's my philosophy, especially at this age. If you want to send them from primary 3, primary 4, maybe you can get an assessment from their class teachers as to whether they need more academic help or not, and then carry on from there. And of course, they can always get in touch with us to see how to move along. But like I said, this 88 tuition platform is like very God-given thing to parents right now, because they can just view everything from home. Like, this platform has been there even before COVID hit, right? 2 years ago. So yeah.
Okay, so you've got three kids. I don't know how you do it.
That's very easy to answer. Every time a government grant comes along, we plan for one.
Okay, but that being said, okay, the focus being on the second one, right? Because she's going to primary one, and I mean, so what is your experience in terms of sort of helping her be more motivated to learn? Maybe being more interested in the language as well. Because I mean, language takes a lot longer to sort of to cultivate, right? So maybe you could share some tips on what you do, to sort of help your child be more interested
Okay,
in
so
learning. Yeah.
yeah, as all of you guys already know, I have the eldest already going to P6 next year. She's in P5. So I can learn from what she's gone through to actually focus on the second one right now. And my first daughter, she loves to read. And that's because we introduced her to books right from the start. We brought her to the library a lot. And as you mentioned before, I think the exposure is the most important. It's not forcing them to read or making sure they manage to read some words at a certain age. Just give them whatever avenue they can to explore. Just by going to the library, when they see a whole space of books, right, they actually get very, very excited. Although they do not know what they're going in for. Actually, it's for the long haul, to be able to be able to get into their reading habit. But they don't know that, because they think that you're bringing them for an excursion. You can pick up whatever books that you want, and they love stories also. So you give them also the ability to choose the books that they want. No need to force any books on them. So, and then you sit down there, you can have a read with them. So it's basically exposure. So my eldest one was reading from the age of 5, like books that she could read. And then she just managed to have this love of going to the library and then borrowing her own books. But now her language is really good because she reads a lot. Yeah. So you don't really have to, hand hold them and get them to read, if you can ignite that reading spark or the interest at a very young age, which is right now. Like for my second one, it's the same thing. Just 2 days ago, I went to the library with them. Yeah, right now, 2 days ago, it was 30-minute session, and we were there for the full 30 minutes getting books for even the youngest one, who's just 4 years old. And 2 days later, they announced that you can sit in there for 3 hours. Yeah, so you guys are very lucky. So parents, please make use of our national library. Is like a haven to the kids. I know many parents do not even have time to bring them there, but try to bring them at least once a month. Or now, I also know that the library has kicked off a program where you can actually order books in. Check that out, because it's really good. You can order books in. That means they deliver the books to your home. So check National Library Board for that as well.
Okay, so besides reading, do you do any other activities to sort of help, your second one, or your children in general, right? To sort of get interested in the language.
Like I said, like once like they get interested in reading, right, then half the battle or nearly the full battle is won. But otherwise, uh, like the parents have to show an interest in reading as well. So when we go to library, of course, we pick up books to borrow as well. Then comes the golden question of the second language, which many parents will find difficult, because we speak a lot in English. So we might sort of say, hey, actually my kids' English is not so bad. That's because we are speaking with them ever since they were like 0 years old. So that's why. So don't get surprised. But Chinese and Tamil and even I struggle. So, but I'm trying to get in to the same concept of getting to read. They have to be exposed to books and read by themselves, and then the language exposure that they see on the books is what's going to help them. If they cannot read books. They can actually, if you bring them to the library, they can, because you didn't try. And the second, it's of course the TV stuff, right? They all love the gadgets and the YouTube, and so you have to get them to start watching YouTube that are award winning. So what I do is I go and start Googling on the award winning cartoons for kids of that age. So 5, 6, 7, right? Zoom in on those and start getting them to watch those, because if they start watching their own, right, you'll see them watching Transformers and Peppa Pig and all that, right? I know, but you have your own like award-winning shows waiting for them to watch, which they don't know, because it doesn't come on the top viewed number of
Correct,
views. Yeah,
correct.
it
Yeah.
doesn't come. So you have to source them, and then you can play them on your phone and just hand it to them, or let it play on a computer nearby you, and slowly get them starting to watch. And after 1 2 episodes, then it's just like a soap drama. They just want to carry on. So that's another way.
Okay, that's actually a very good suggestion. Award-winning ones, right? So, that being said, I'm sure that there are different categories for different age groups,
Yeah.
right? So
If you
for
Google, you have all this information, even books for 5 to 6 year old, books to 7 to 8 years. What are the books that are around? So when I went to library, right, I searched for these books in particular, and then I borrow them together with those books that they are taking as well. Like I said, I don't feed them the books, but I just keep them at home, and when they finish the first round, at least they have some other books that they can go to.
Okay. So, okay, what I'm very interested in, which you mentioned, right, is the award-winning videos, right? So, that being said, okay, so I've never Googled any of them. So, how would you say that they're different from normal videos? Because the normal videos have storyline, probably what would differ in my mind right now, I'm thinking is probably the use of the language. But what makes these like,
Award winning, right?
award-winning? Yeah, correct. So, what is
Yeah,
the differentiating factor? Yeah.
because they are award winning based on the research done on the full category, right? The full episodes, they must pass the category of not having any foul language, any bad characterism, like even kids talking bad, back to the parent should not be in there. So we don't want to encourage these kind of characters in, which a lot of our kids are exposed to. So I'm very, very wary of those things. So I need to watch out for what they watch. Sometimes you do give them the allowance to watch whatever they want, right? But I always keep an eye on what they're watching, especially language. If they cannot watch those things, then I'll tell them that's just nonsense video. You should watch something better. So they know this word nonsense from me. So I'll be like, why are you watching some nonsense or something like that? My eldest to the youngest, they all know what's a nonsense video. So they also get this idea that, oh, dad wants me to watch something better. And then you slowly try to move them out of it if they are already very much into watching nonsense videos. Yeah, that's award winning. So character wise, like there are some shows that they look okay, but the language that they use isn't really good because they are coming from another country. It could be British or American, and it's maybe normal to them, but it's not normal to us. So for an Asian parent, it could be too much. So it's always up to us. We have to watch what they are watching. Yeah.
Okay. So that means that I'm sure you use 88 with your kids.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so how do you think 88 has actually helped them in terms of their learning?
Yeah.
Are they able to be a little bit more independent, you think, with the use?
Firstly, 88 Tuition is the top most of the non-nonsense video, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So it's an academic video kind of a thing. They may find it a bit difficult to assimilate at first, but like you said, giving them the empowerment to log in themselves, play with the tools, and of course the website is doing a lot of changes to make it, more gamification, right? So they're going to enjoy it a lot more. So whenever it comes to tests and exams, they can go straight to it, and I encourage them to go and pick up the topics that they're being tested, and then straight away within one overnight, right, they can revise for the test without having to go through tons of books and not knowing. The advantage is definitely different children are going to different schools, so the topics that being taught are different,
Mm,
and therefore when you send them to a tuition center, you have a class of 5 coming from different schools. So the tuition teacher is actually trying to make the best out of that 1 hour and see if they can fit a lesson to fit all the 5 of them. But on an online platform, your child is able to learn the topic that they're being taught in school and be prepared for the school next day or next month or the test next day. Yeah. And like you said, the exposure to the language, like we use good English for English, math, and science. So when they listen to us, they probably be able to pick up on how to answer questions very, very easily by just watching us. I mean, after all, we are in video format and at
mm,
any time, any day.
mm. Okay. Okay. So now just a couple of tips that I think many parents want to know, right? So how can you as a parent, right, actually help to prepare your child for primary one? Because I mean it's a new battle that you're going to face, right? It's
Yeah.
very intimidating, it's a new environment. So based on your experience with your first child, right? How do you think you can and perhaps motivate other parents as well to sort of prepare their kids?
Okay, this is probably going to be long, but I would like to share. I like because it's been 5 years of experiential learning with my elders, right? Like from primary one since 2015 till now. You know, first we put her in a school bus, and then the school bus picks her up at 5:30, 5:45, which is too early, but we still went through it. Now that she's older, we really had to drop the bus, and then because half the time she's in school not using the bus is expensive, so she takes the public transport. That's one. Two, we had to engage some help. I don't have a helper, so I had to engage the help of my parents to get her when she goes home. She goes to my parents home. So that was that. And then in between, like in primary three and primary four, we even tried the after school care, which is provided by the school, and most of your schools will provide them as well. So if you parents are thinking of whether your child should be put in after school care, which is provided within the school compound, or it could be near your home, where your kid comes back home, there's no one at home, she gets off or he gets off and goes. Should you be doing it? Well, that depends on how much support you get from your helper. If you really trust them with the kid after school and like for the next 5 hours, you don't know what they're doing, or if the best is, of course, they come home, they have a good lunch and they nap. Napping is very, very, very important. I can't stress this enough. I have so much experience of a kid coming after school and not having a nap, and I just have the trouble the whole night after that. So napping is very important. And so in a student care, right, you can check with them whether they actually provide the napping care service where they are allowed to sleep 1 to 2 hours if you decide to put them there, which helped my daughter a lot during those years where I was struggled to get someone to look after her. She managed to finish her homework on time and and all that. So it was very, very formative years of the 9, 10 years old. It really, really put her on par with the rest in terms of homework and all that because she was struggling through that. So every situation is different. All you parents have to access your help, and you have to talk to parents who have sent them to that child care center or student care center that you have decided for your kid, and then take it from there. Yeah. So napping is very important, and after school care is important. And so far, we've talked about the phone as well. The phone exposure. Many of you may be wondering if you should be giving a phone to your kid. If you really think they need something to uh, contact you. At P1, I did not give my kid a phone yet. It was not until P3 because she was taking the school bus, and right after school she was back home, and you could contact her through the home phone, or the school actually provides the phone from their admin office to call back actually, so you don't have to worry about that. After P3, if they're taking public transport, some other way, you just need to keep them in contact with you. You can give them a phone, but a non-smartphone will be very, very helpful at that point of time. And then as they grow older, you have a check because the trouble with this smartphone is parents begin to struggle with a lot of things that go on the mobile device in their hand. So please watch out, and probably I'll recommend giving them the smartphone maybe after secondary 1 or 2. Yeah.
Okay, so just to basically rehash what you just said, right? How to help our children would be firstly to establish a routine, right? Encourage the nap time, have very specific times, so that they are more used to they're more used to a timetable, so it's easier for them to follow as well in school.
Yeah.
Right, okay, and of course teaching them or sort of giving them some tips on what to how to deal with unprecedented events, like for example, you can go to the GO to make a phone call, because they don't have the option of calling using their mobile phone and all that, right?
Yeah.
So sort of giving them some sort of hints or tips of what to do should they face situations that they're not familiar with, basically, right? Just
Yeah.
run through with them. Okay, and actually one last question that I'm very interested. So basically, if there's one takeaway today that you would like parents to have as they embark their primary school, and I say their primary school because at the end of the day every parent is like going through primary school again, right, with their child.
Yeah, it's really exciting when your kid goes to P1. It's like, I think on the first day, you yourself want to go, right? Definitely. I don't see any parents staying at home and then sending the kid in the school bus, and just definitely you wake up like 1 hour earlier than everybody. Yeah, yeah, correct.
Okay, so if there's one tip that you can take let the parents take away from today, right, what would it be?
Stay sane. Don't lose don't lose your mind over simple things. They are learning. With young learners, we have been through the K1 and K2, hopefully, right? So you've seen how they react to school, especially you know how they react to school. If they are like my daughters, they are different because they love to go to school. Some children, they don't love to go to school, but it's how we try to get them to love to go to school, right? So school environment is important. Don't worry about the first 2 weeks. Even if they cry, it's okay. Just comfort them. The school teachers are there to support them all the time. They know it inside out because they see this every year. So just leave the expertise to the teachers in charge over there. They know what to do with their kids. So if you want to just leave them and go, you don't worry, they'll be fine. So after 2 weeks, right, what will happen is they get familiar with the school, the teachers, and they get friends, and everything becomes normal again. So do not worry about the first 2 weeks if they are struggling to get to school, to wake up. Just be patient, and yeah, that's the final parting tip that I would like to give you.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Ali. All right, for your time and for your advice. Okay, parents, I'm sure you've learned and picked up some tips along the way. Okay, so we've actually come to the end of our sharing session. Okay, but let me just leave you with a quote, as I do for all my lessons, right? Okay, children must be taught how to think, right? Not what to think. We should always give them the guidance in terms of how and the way that they should go about it. But we should never try to restrain, we should never try to control their learning process. Okay, so I believe that 88 tuition will actually empower your child to take charge of their learning, okay, and to believe that they are able to achieve greater things. Okay, so that being said, if you've got any questions, you know our contact number. Okay, just drop us an email. You can, or the email is there on the screen. Okay, and please sign up, register for an account, let your child learn with us. Okay, have a lovely weekend, a Saturday evening. Have a good dinner, and we'll be in touch soon. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.